because it's so unhinged. Like, this episode gets weirder and weirder as the minutes go on. My jaw was on the floor watching this. I was like, how weirder can it get? And it just keeps going. And that's why I love this episode.
Trek Profiles Podcast, episode 97. Can you believe it? Recorded October 2024. This is the Trek Profiles Podcast, where each episode we talk with a Star Trek fan. We hear their fandom story, and we try to figure out why we all love Star Trek so much. I'm John, your intrepid host of this whole enterprise, and I welcome you to this Trek Profiles Podcast, episode 97. If you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us at feedback@trekprofiles.com. That's email, or on Facebook, or Twitter, or Blue Sky, all at Trek Profiles. Spoiler warning, my friends, on this show, any episode of the Trek may be discussed at any time. You have been warned, humans. As always, my trusty sidekick and co-host is the frequently fearsome, frankly fulsome, yet never irksome M5 Multitronic unit. Say hi, M5.
The M5 is at full power.
Let's do the announcements.
Announcements ready.
This is an independent show. If you'd like to support us, the best way to do that is just to follow us wherever you're getting your audio. We are on all the major platforms, and your following us helps other Trek fans find us. The Trek Profiles Podcast is 100% advertising free. We don't even have a supporters program or anything like that, but if you'd like to show some appreciation, I'd ask for you to consider a donation to our official charity here on the show. That's the Children's Fund for Glycogen Storage Disease. There's a link up at trekprofiles.com/donate to give directly to the charity if you'd like to participate. There are some lightly edited outtakes and some bonus material at the end of the episode. It will come after the ending audio cards. Enjoy it, or not, as you choose. At the end of every episode, my guest faces my Kobayashi Maru lightning round. They get 5 terrible multiple-choice Star Trek questions, and they have to give us their answers. After each episode drops, I tweet those questions out as polls where you can have your say. So let's take a look at the questions from episode 95 with Jennifer Rossman and see how it went. What are we ordering from Klingon Chef? Rocked, gach, or Krata legs? Jen wanted the gach, but in the online poll, it was tied between the gach and the Krata legs at 50% apiece. Which destroyed planet would we like to visit on the holodeck and see them while they were thriving? Zindus, Ceti Alpha 5, the Genesis planet, or Quajon? Jen said Zindus, but the online poll was inconclusive with no planet getting a clear winner. Who's joining the TNG bridge crew for poker? Shran, Wayun 7, Penk, or Brunt FCA? Jen wanted Shran, and the online people were content to let her have that victory. It's time for Warp. Do we hit it, do it, punch it, or step on it? Jen and the entire online poll people were perfectly aligned. 75% of the people agreed with hit it, 25% were for punch it, and absolutely no one wanted to do it or step on it. So let's warp me to the final question. Which of these dads is the worst? Magnus Hansen and Oberyn Tane, Gul Dukat, or Worf? Jen picked Hansen, but in the online poll, Worf was declared the worst by 50%. Hansen and Tane got 25% apiece, and no one picked Gul Dukat. Now, if you enjoyed those questions and would like to take a stab at writing your own for possible inclusion in the show, send them to me at feedback@trekprofiles.com or DM me on Twitter. So we are rapidly closing in on 100 episodes, and for episode 100, I think I'm going to be doing a retrospective, and I'd love to hear from you. I would love to hear about any episodes of my show that you thought were interesting, maybe a moment from one of my episodes that made you laugh, or something that was memorable for you in some way. So if you have anything like that, you can always DM me on any of my social media platforms or email me, trekprofiles.com, and audio comments are also very, very welcome. I have one piece of errata in this episode. I was speaking off the top of my head about some Discovery episodes, and I think I screwed up the order, but I then later on in the same episode, same interview, a little bit later, I got it right. So I just want you to know I'm aware I did not get the correct order episode right away, but I did correct it. So there you go. I regret the error. That's it for announcements. Let's get to it. M5, start the show.
Interview transmission commencing.
Her favorite captain is Janeway, and her favorite villain is Kai Wynn. She does like the Vulcans, and the Voyager is her favorite ship. She's from California, North America, Earth, in Sector 001. It's Navya. Welcome, Navya. Thanks for being on the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Navya, you are one of the people that I invited to be on the show from TrekTok. So you are, I think, my third TrekTok guest. How does that feel?
Great. Third time's the best, right? Or third time's the charm, whatever that saying is.
And I love Star Trek 3, so I think 3 is a great number. I think 3 is a great number. But the M5 is already bugging me, telling me that I have to ask you question 1, which is, are you a Star Trek fan?
100%.
And were you always a Star Trek fan, or was there a particular point in your life that you remembered discovering Star Trek? How did that work for you?
So I was actually a huge fan of Reading Rainbow. And then once I got into like grade school, I was flipping through a channel because I was too old for Reading Rainbow, obviously. Obviously. And I saw this guy. I saw the host of Reading Rainbow with the visor on. I'm like, what is he doing? What is this show? And I quickly discovered that was Star Trek The Next Generation. And I was looking at Geordi, and I absolutely fell in love with the show.
And so when about was this? Was this the 80s or the early 90s?
Early 2000s.
Early 2000s.
Yeah,
Okay,
I know,
so you were catching it in reruns.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And did you just start watching Next Gen like religiously, or what happened next?
Yeah, we just kind of discovered it, and I just started watching whenever it was on TV. And that was around the time when Star Trek would just happen in marathons. Like, you'd get like 10-hour blocks of Star Trek, and it'd be all out of order. I don't remember the episodes ever being in order. So, yeah, it was a wonderful era.
Oh, glorious. Now, in the 2000s, Star Trek Enterprise was on the air in the early 2000s. Did you watch Enterprise and original broadcast, or did that come later?
No, actually, because it was on the Sci-Fi Channel, I believe. And those were like the channels that you had to pay extra for, and I wasn't getting those channels.
No, I don't think Enterprise was on Sci-Fi.
Was it?
No.
Well, when I discovered it, when I learned about it, it was on the Sci-Fi Channel.
All right, I could be wrong about that. Maybe it was different in the part of California you were in, but that would be news to me if that was true.
What channel was it? What channel was it on for you?
It was on regular broadcast TV.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was regular over-the-air broadcast.
But it aired in what, like 2005?
2001 to 2004, somewhere
Okay.
right around there. Mm-hmm.
I would have still been in grade school, so
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
So one of the stories that I often hear from people is they get that are like you and me, that they're watching Star Trek as a youngster, and then they go off to college or something, and then they sort of fall off and get back into it. Was that you, or did you stay watching Star Trek the entire time?
No, I definitely did fall off because I saw like Star Trek Next Generation, I saw Voyager, I saw parts of DS9, parts of Enterprise, and then like I got to college and I was like, I'm too cool for school. And I stopped watching, and then all of a sudden, was it Picard that was the first? No, Discovery. They were like, oh my God, Star Trek Discovery's coming out, and I was like so excited. And then I picked it up. From there, I started rewatching everything.
Oh, but so you didn't go to the Kelvin movies when they came out in 2009?
Oh no, I did see those. Sorry, but those were during my high school, when I was in high school. So
Okay.
yeah.
As we sit here, it sounds like you've seen most of the newer era of Trek in the streaming era?
Yes, I've seen all of Trek at this point.
Okay, so you're
Even
sure.
animated.
Even like the original animated series from the 70s?
Yes, I saw that recently though.
Okay, so as far as we're sitting here in 2024, you're 100% on all the Star Trek that's been ever made, all 900 and whatever episodes.
Yes. Although I don't know if I'd be very good at Star Trek trivia though. So.
That's okay. That's okay. I just always want to ask, and I always ask people who are like missing some stuff. I always ask them if they're going to commit to watching it. Sometimes people are kind of cagey about that. So let me ask you a question now. In the streaming era, especially, when you're watching Star Trek, are you watching it on a personal device, or are you like having a big screen TV, or how do you consume it?
I mean, new Trek is so beautiful. I think the bigger the screen, the better. At least for me. There's so many details. The graphics are so pretty. Everyone's costumes are so detailed. It has to be a big screen.
And so that's what you're doing? You're watching it on the big screen? Okay, glorious. Okay, glorious. And did you ever collect any of the shows on discs or tapes, or are you like a full streaming all the time person?
I'm streaming all the time, and that always like sometimes bites me in the butt, but
when stuff disappears?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think like right now as we record this, I think the movies cannot be had on Paramount Plus. I think they're on a different service.
Actually, they're back. They were on MGM and they just came back like this month. So
Oh, okay.
Thank
Okay.
goodness, yeah.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, because sometimes sometimes you
Yeah,
just got to see the Thalaron radiation, just happening, and
yeah,
Nemesis, right? So
yeah.
I get it. I get it. Did you ever feel the need to collect anything Trek related?
I buy all the t-shirts. Like, is whenever I see a Star Trek t-shirt, I have to buy it. I have like 20 or 30 and I'm trying to stop because it's just too much. But they're so cool and so interesting. So
What
that's
What's your
uh-huh.
favorite one?
Do you know that in Strange New Worlds, that
Mm-hmm.
line that Una says like ad aspera per something?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I forget exactly what
Ad
the
Aspera per Astra, something like that.
yeah, something like that. I have a
Mm-hmm.
t-shirt that has the Enterprise in the middle and then the word around it. That whole phrase, and it's just my favorite.
Oh, that's glorious. And you wear it out and about. Do any of the normies
Yes. Oh
ask you
yeah.
about it? Do they recognize it?
No, nobody ever asks me. I get so sad because when the new show started streaming, I was like, oh my god, this is great. New Star Trek people are gonna discover like all the episodes and like Star Trek and all that. And I started buying T-shirts and I'd wear them out, and I'm like, someone's gonna ask me about it. Nobody has ever asked me, and it makes me so sad.
Have you ever been to a Star Trek or a sci-fi convention?
See, that's the problem. That's where I've gone wrong. I need to go. I've never been, but that's on my to-do list.
I mean, you're in the Bay Area, so they
Yeah,
do have events that happen in the Bay Area.
they do. I see them all the time, and then like I swear I have short-term memory loss sometimes because I'll like be like I should go, and then I forget. So it just needs to be more of a priority.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Have you ever done a Star Trek cosplay?
Yeah, a couple years ago, I was, oh boy, what's Spock's wife's name or ex-wife?
Pring.
Pring, yes. I dressed up as Pring from Strange New Worlds, and it's on my Instagram if anyone's curious.
Oh my, well, yeah. Let me know your Instagram and I'll put that up in the show notes, up at trekprofiles.com so people can find that because that is glorious.
Yes.
How did you do the costume? Is it something you made, something you bought, something you put together from like the Goodwill store? How did you do it?
Yeah, I just kind of had to go out and find the pieces. Thankfully, her dress in Strange New Worlds, the black one, it was just like a black cardigan with like a long black dress, and then I got the ears from online, and then I just drew the brows and put some makeup on, and it worked out pretty well
What was the occasion for wearing this?
for Halloween.
Oh, okay. And
Yeah.
did you get recognized?
No. I'm so sad. It's so painful that nobody ever talks Czech with me in real life.
You know what? I have the same problem. That's why I do
Yeah.
podcasting. I do a couple
Yes.
of other like nerdy online things because this is my outlet for this. Because the people in my
Mhm.
day-to-day life do not care at all.
They're so boring. People who aren't Star Trek people are so boring.
I know it. And my fans can't see this, but you have a giant Vulcan poster in the background,
Yes.
which I feel
Yep.
is just that's A plus perfection right there.
Yeah.
So talk me through how you're sort of this fan living your
Mhm.
life, doing your normal thing, going to work, going to school, whatever, watching
Mhm.
Star Trek, to becoming a super duper prolific TikTok Star Trek creator. What possessed you to do that?
That's so sweet of you. I don't know if I'm that prolific, but I do it for fun. I actually have always wanted to meet a community of Star Trek people. Like growing up in high school, it was a secret that I was a Trek fan. And then in college, I got a little bit more comfortable and confident in myself, and I would tell people, but that I still couldn't find any Trek people. And so I started like a blog where I started writing about Star Trek stuff and still no people. And then I got on TikTok and I saw a whole bunch of people talking about Star Trek. I'm like, yes, I found my people. And I was like, okay, now I can start talking about Trek.
You seem to make a lot of videos. How many videos are you putting out a week? Like when when new Star Trek's coming out?
Yeah, usually like one or two.
Oh,
And
wow. It feels
sometimes
like more than that to me because I see a lot of them. So
sometimes the people leave a comment. That's when it's like fun to go back and forth, right? You make a video of that comment and it gets more people talking, leaving comments, and that's the fun part. I absolutely love that. So
people like to say really bad things about Star Trek Twitter. But I can say, I've been pretty active on Star Trek Twitter, and I can say I've never gotten beaten up as badly as when I put out Star Trek TikToks.
Really?
Like, that's where people come for me.
That's crazy.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're not here to talk about me, but I'll let you know
Yeah.
this one, which is I put out a video that I said the number one thing that makes next gen sci-fi to me is how ridiculously competent everyone is at their jobs, and it's like competency porn. You know what I mean? They literally tell someone go realign this thing and like figure out 16 kinds of science in
Yeah.
5 minutes, and they're like, aye, and off they go and do it.
Yeah.
right? And someone's like, well, obviously you've never seen the episodes with Barkley. And I was like, nope, correction. Barkley is exceptionally good at his job.
Yeah.
He has other problems.
Yeah.
And people are like, that's not how it is in the military. And I was like, oh, I was in the military. Allow me to elaborate, and like, it just went on and it was not good.
I remember this video and I remember laughing so hard because I was like, that is so true. I can't believe you got hate for that. That's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. You look at the comments.
Yeah.
Or unless I hit them or TikTok hides them because they do that.
Sometimes, yeah.
So I'm going to make an exception to my normal run of the show here, which is that my show doesn't really do news or current events or, what's happening in the world of Star Trek today. That's not really what I do. But the M5 tells me that you have some interesting thoughts on the Section 31 movie that's coming out. And I should ask you about this. So tell me, what is on your mind about Section 31, Navya? I want to know.
I'm so excited about this movie. I've been looking at the graphics that they've been releasing because I don't think we have a trailer yet, but I'm excited for that trailer. But just looking at the graphics, the costumes that everyone's wearing, just the cast, it just looks so interesting. It kind of reminds me of Suicide Squad. I don't know if you saw that, like from the graphics, that's what it reminds me of. So I'm hoping it kind of goes along the line of that, but better because Suicide Squad was interesting. But yeah.
So Section 31 seems to have a mixed feeling amongst the fans of the show. There were some people who were like, give me more Section 31. In fact, give me a Section 31 show. It's all I'm interested in. It's all I want. And some people are like, that is the most un-Star Trek thing in the history of all Star Trek is Section 31. We hates it precious. We hates it, burns it with fire. So it seems like you're more in the pro Section 31 camp.
Yeah, because every organization is going to have a Section 31 team. Like, everyone just has that. Even if we live in this beautiful future, like, there's still going to be someone who's suspicious and be like, we need a Section 31.
I'm of the opinion that I love Michelle Yeoh, fantastic actress. I'm not a fan of the Empress. I think she's really, really, really bad.
She's brutal.
I mean, the worst thing you ever want to say about any politician or anybody who's on the face of the earth today, she's worse. And I think, I'm not sure if I'm ready to see a show with that character at the center. I mean, a movie in this case. So talk me off the ledge, Navya. Tell me it's going to be all right.
I'm excited to see how she evolves because you're right. She's not a good person. We've seen that in Discovery, but we've also seen her kind of grow throughout the seasons. And I'm interested in seeing where her character goes. And if they do it properly, it can be a good movie. But if they don't follow through with that, I might be on your side.
All right. So we'll have to see what they do. The one thing I'm interested to see, I have to admit, is I want to see what they do with the Deltans. Because we have not seen a Deltan as a main character since Star Trek The Motion Picture. And they're really weird. So let's find out what they're doing. By the way, if you've never read the motion picture novelization, I always will give a plug for that because they talk a lot about like why the Deltans are the way they are. It's wild stuff. So anybody out there, give that a listen if you're interested. And I'll be interested to see if they follow through with the stuff that's in the book and they make that new Deltan like what Roddenberry wrote. Or if they do something different, we'll see. But I'm mildly curious about how it all turns out. We've got another thing in the hopper. We've got the Starfleet Academy show.
Yeah.
Paul Giamatti, Holly Hunter. I mean, can you imagine? What is going on right here?
I'm more worried about that show. When they first announced Star Trek Academy, I thought it was going to be in the heyday of Starfleet because like right around like Next Gen era. And then they said, no, it's after Discovery. And we saw the students in Discovery. There was like 3 or 4. And I'm like, oh God, this is not going to be as epic as like a whole like Star Trek university like years during like Next Gen era.
I mean, I know a little bit about the military because I was in it and how it works for a lot of these things today. And I don't know what they're going to do with the show, but there's the idea that like you're in school and then during like the break periods, you're off out in the fleet. So I'm wondering if the show is going to be a combo like that. Like there's like, episodes that are going to be at Starfleet Academy doing Starfleet Academy things. Maybe more personal episodes, and then like some grand adventure stuff out in space. I don't know. But I mean, just that's sort of where my mind goes to sort of calibrate what I think it's going to be. I don't know if you want to react to any of that. You're more than welcome to.
No, I think that makes sense. I think if to be a good show, you need to have a mixture of all that. And unfortunately, I think as we get more and more Star Trek shows, I think they're trying to make it general so it appeals to a wider group of people rather than like hardcore Trekkies. So You might be onto something.
Yeah, well, it's interesting you say that because I'll want to hear your opinion on this. I was a guest on another podcast,
Mhm.
and we were talking about this thing that happens sometimes in fandoms where people will say, "Oh, they announced a new show. Nobody asked for this. This isn't what we want." And as far as like speaking from quote unquote the fans, and I can in my head can easily imagine a conversation happening at network streaming headquarters where there's some executive who's like, I don't give a damn what the fans want. I don't want the
Yeah.
fans. They're going to watch it anyway. I want like the random person who's like, I've heard about this new show and I have to watch it.
Yeah.
So I got to subscribe. That is very plausible to me. So I can easily imagine a show that does not cater to the fans at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that's going to be the case here. I'm just saying I'm open to judging it from that
Yeah.
perspective when we see it. I don't know what it's going to be. We'll find out.
Right.
Whatever it is, but it'll be a fun ride, I think.
I think all those executives in the executive room probably had that same train of thought when they decide to build a whole streaming service on Star Trek. Like, I love Star Trek, but like I can tell you, we're kind of a small group of people that really love our show. You're not going to bring a whole bunch of people in like they did with like Disney Plus and Star Wars. So, but that's a conversation maybe for a different day.
Oh no, that's a conversation for right fracking now.
Okay,
So
let's do it.
you're saying that you don't think that Star Trek has the power as a franchise to really draw people in who are not
Yeah.
already Star Trek fans.
I mean, no, I think it can draw people in, but I don't think it'll be the amount where it would make executives the amount of money they want. I think we couldn't bring in a decent amount of money, but, these execs want billions of dollars. We're not doing billions of dollars.
Okay, fair enough. We will have to wait and see.
Yeah.
And, one of the challenges that I think that all of us, no matter what quote unquote side you're on,
Mhm.
is that because things are in streaming, that the data isn't quite there. I mean, the Nielsen ratings back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, they were there and like you saw everything. Now it's a lot more fuzzier. I mean, Nielsen is doing some stuff, but I don't know if it's quite the same.
It pisses me off that we cannot get good, solid numbers because there's so many people who are like, I hate Discovery. Like, who's watching Discovery? I would love to be like, you know what? This is the highest rated Star Trek shows. I guess like this many million views or whatever. It'd be so good to back it up with data, but we don't get actual numbers or proper numbers.
Yeah, we get like this is the
Yeah.
most streamed show this
Yeah.
week, and we get like some.
Exactly.
We get
what does
some-
that mean?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really tell us things.
Yeah.
So I'm absolutely sure that there's some analyst with a spreadsheet sitting at Paramount that's like
Yeah.
got the numbers that they're looking for, and it might even be some metric that you and I don't even understand. But we'll see. We will see. As long as they keep making new shows, I'll watch it and see what they do.
They keep canceling them too. Like, that's why I'm even more frustrated. Like, give me some solid numbers. Pick like 2 shows that you really want to concentrate on and build those shows out. I don't know.
As we record this, Lower Decks is in its last season. And I
Yeah.
keep thinking, like, these animated shows can go on for forever.
Yes. Oh
What are
my
you
God.
doing? Like, I don't understand it. I
know.
truly, I don't. I don't try to be like that guy that's always second guessing the network.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can imagine like what the production schedule is for a show like
Mhm.
Discovery and how much money it costs to make an episode. But I mean, Lower Decks, they should be cranking those things
Yeah.
out. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's
We have what, like 10 episodes a season for Lower Decks, right? Or no, they do the 2 seasons or 2-part seasons. Yeah. Or
you're thinking
no?
of Prodigy.
I'm thinking of Project. Okay, yeah. So Lower Decks is 10 episodes a season. That's not that many episodes. And like realistically, you're not like it probably doesn't take that long to record as long as it would take in live action TV show, right? And like it's like I don't understand how expensive could it possibly be. The math is not mathing.
Yeah, it's disappointing. So
Yeah.
I think it's actually affecting for me as I watch the episodes. I don't know if you saw the first 2 of Lower Decks.
Yes,
They-
yeah.
I mean, I loved them. Yeah,
I did
I like the first one better than the second one.
Mm-hmm.
But it just affects my enjoyment
Yeah.
of the show. This is it. This is the
Yeah.
last bite of pie. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. Okay, the M5 is telling me that we should talk about some episodes. Are you game?
Yes. Let's do it.
I'm a little confused here, Navya. Maybe you can give me some clarification because one of the things that came up on the episode list is The Cage.
The Cage. Yeah.
And it says The Cage, not The Menagerie. So this is the purest form of the cage, the original OG pilot from the 60s. Tell me, what is it about the cage that you love so much?
The thing I really enjoy about like the story of the cage is the way it's kind of evolved over the years. We
Mm-hmm.
first saw it in the menagerie, and then
Yep.
it came out that this was actually the original pilot, and this was what Star Trek was supposed to be. We got that speck of data, and then in Discovery we see it again, and we got so much more context for the episode, and then we got a whole TV show, Strange New Worlds, kind of built on this event that will happen. And I think for an episode like that, for an episode in any TV show to have that much like meaning behind it is crazy. And that's kind of why this episode is meaningful to me and I respect it so much.
We're going to divert for a second.
Okay.
One of the things I'm always interested in when they sort of revisit earlier stuff is like what they're going to do to it.
Yes.
So have you ever read the book? And it's a famous book. I think like
Mhm.
most kids in America read it in high school, 1984.
No, we didn't. I did not read that.
Didn't read
But I
1984.
think I know what it's about though.
Winston Smith, right? And he's living in this terrible society and
Mhm.
like stuff is crazy. And in 1984, he meets this girl, Julia,
Mhm.
and it is not permitted in that society to have a romantic relationship
Oh, okay.
because it takes away from your love of the party. Like the only one you are to love is the party.
Mm.
Families are not supposed to have like natural sex. You're supposed to go for insemination, because that's like a closeness between people. Everyone's supposed to be close to the party, and they have this illicit love affair. And that's a big part of 1984. And then, of course, they get caught and it's whatever happens. Last year, they rewrote, the original author is long dead.
Oh.
He died in like the 50s, I think, or the 40s. They brought in a new author and she wrote the same book, but from the woman's perspective.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it's called Julia.
Uh-huh.
And I have to admit, I loved it as like a piece of fiction,
Mm-hmm.
but it seriously undermines some main elements of the original story, which I won't go
Okay.
into for spoiler reasons.
Right.
But I got kind of mad. And I was like, so whenever they revisit stuff like that, I'm always like, are they going to nuke it and just like pave it over and like rebuild something new? Or are they going to make it a fuller story? I never know which way they're going to go.
Yeah.
And in Julia, it was like from aliens, nuke the whole site from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. It was that.
Yeah. Oh God.
And it kind of made me mad, even though it was very well written, very beautifully written, I should say, and horrifyingly written in certain parts, which was very appropriate. So it has a lot to commend it.
Mm-hmm.
But the stuff they changed like drove me crazy. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you want to opine on any of that. You're more than welcome to.
I haven't read it, but now I'm kind of curious. Maybe I'll read both of those books.
If you do, read them back to back. It's the best way
Okay.
to do it. Read 1984 and then jump right into Julia.
Will do.
All right. Let's talk about Kobayashi.
Oh
the
my gosh.
episode of Prodigy where they discover the holodeck, and we have all the great folks from Star Trek history coming back to help out our character as he goes through the Kobayashi Maru. Why is this episode special to you?
Because it harkens back to Trials and Tribulations in DS9. As soon as I saw this, I was like, oh my God, it reminds me exactly of that DS9 episode. I like when TV shows effectively bring back old characters. And this was such a cool way of doing it. I didn't feel any of those characters were misrepresented. I think all those characters were exactly who we would have seen in the original like TOS series.
I gotta say, I was just watching that whole episode with my jaw on the floor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just because I was like, it almost, and I don't mean this as a criticism in any way, but it took me out of the episode because I was
really?
like, how did they even do this?
Oh, okay. Okay.
You know what I mean? I'm like, how did they manufacture this episode?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is it AI voices? Is it whatever? We didn't find out till later how they did it.
Yeah.
But I was just stunned at the production.
Yeah.
And that's really what just hit me right in the face as I watched it.
The voices were so good. I was shocked because at least in like DS9, like Trials and Tribulations, like they went back into an episode, right? But this was like they didn't go back into an episode. This was all new. I think it's probably new scripts. I don't know if they're like dragging and dropping words or something. I don't know, but yeah,
That's
the voices
exactly
were
what they did.
amazing. Oh, is that what they did?
Yeah.
Okay.
They put that out. And that they sort of had
okay.
like here's every line Mr. Spock ever said. So
Ah.
the author of the episode, had to pick from that menu to try to make everything make sense.
So that's why it was so good. I was like, my mind was blown. I didn't know this until now. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, they put that out, which I just thought was glorious.
And so much work. Holy cow.
I
That
know,
poor person.
but they pulled it off. I mean,
Yeah,
they pulled it off.
yes.
It is literally perfection,
Mhm.
which brings us to our next episode. And I'm going to give you a hard time about this one now.
Uh-oh.
I'm sorry to do it.
Uh-huh.
But one of the episodes you put on the list, you said this is one of the best episodes of all Star Trek.
Uh-huh.
You said this, a mathematically perfect redemption,
No,
which is
okay,
where
I am
Peanut
so ready.
Hamper goes down to the bird planet. And Peanut Hamper is one of the worst characters in the show, like by a lot, but in a lot of
Yep.
people's reckoning. I have my own opinion, but there are people out there like Peanut Hamper is the worst thing I've ever seen. Like, kill it with fire
100%.
right now.
Yeah. No, agreed.
Please tell me why this episode is one of the best of all Star Trek. Make your case.
Because it's so unhinged. Like, this episode gets weirder and weirder as the minutes go on. My jaw was on the floor watching this. I was like, how weirder can it get? And it just keeps going. And that's why I love this episode.
I mean, it couldn't be. Look, did it reach the level of the Mugatu Gamatu episode?
Oh, this is way worse. This is way worse.
So do you think Peanut Hamper's a good character?
No, heck no. I don't like Peanut Hamper at all.
Because this episode it is all about Peanut Hamper.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, our main characters are not in the episode, really.
No.
It's focusing mostly on this terrible person. This is the same stuff we're talking about. We were just talking about Empress Georgiou.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this character's terrible. I don't know if I want to see more of this.
I feel like in that episode in the writer's room, they're like, how much crazier can we make this episode? And they're like, they just like up the stakes every minute of the episode.
So you're like, that's it. This is insane. And I'm just here for the ride. Like, I'm literally here for the Cyclone Twister ride. Strap me in. I'll keep my arms and legs inside the vehicle. Yeah. Let's go.
I was so shocked. I was like, what is happening? Who wrote this? Why is this a thing?
All right. We'll see what happens. I'm feeling like we're going to get some more Peanut Hamper in season 5. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I just have a feeling they're going to bring back this character and resolve the Peanut Hamper story in some kind of way. We'll see what happens.
I don't know if they'll resolve it. They just might be like, whatever, like, we're not resolving this. Like, it'll be true Peanut Hamper style.
Okay. Yes, I will agree with that. It will be some weird, not resolution, but there'll be more Peanut Hamper weirdness in an episode of Lower Decks. Even if it's not like a whole episode, there'll be something. Mm-hmm. Even if the whole show ends up with like Peanut Hamper having the sole memory of all the Lower Decks characters because like the ship was wiped from all memory banks like the Discovery or something. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Okay. Now we're going to turn serious for a minute. I am to ask you about your experience during COVID and watching Past Tense. So from Deep Space Nine. So tell me what's going on here, Navya. What did living through the pandemic and watching Past Tense, what was that all about for you?
For me, it was watching that episode and just going through the pandemic. I was like, is this like real facts? Like, is this happening? Like, I felt like that episode was just a documentary as to what our society is currently going through. And I had seen DS9 before, but I don't know, but it had been maybe 4 or 5 years since the last time I'd watched DS9. And so that episode stayed with me, but it didn't click. And then when I watched it during the pandemic, I was like, holy shoot, this is just a documentary at this point.
So you felt like they really captured something.
Yeah. They captured what our society is currently going through and the homelessness crisis. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and what they described it's not as bad, but it's getting really bad.
Because that's a major issue in the news right now, what's going on in San Francisco. I mean, I see in the news that all the pharmacies have everything locked up.
Yep.
There's
stores
a lot
are closing. San Francisco, the financial district was it was where all the big tech companies were, and most of them moved out. So the homeless crisis is just getting really bad. Stores are closing. People don't have jobs.
So we're in the fall. Not quite in the fall, but it's getting to be the fall as we record this. Mm-hmm. And during the summer, we had to take my kid, who's in high school, to a summer camp that was up in Berkeley.
Okay.
Being in Las Vegas, it's a little bit of a trip.
Yeah.
So we decided to spend the overnight rather than try to do it all in one day. My wife, who's very concerned with not spending a lot of money, She tried to find the cheapest hotel we could find.
Oh, no.
And so we found a Marriott on Helgenberger Road in Oakland,
Okay.
right next to the airport.
Uh-huh.
And wow, that was not a good decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all I could tell you. Oof. I wish we had done a little bit more research before we did that. So
Yeah.
anyway, okay, let's move on. Let's talk about some episodes which are powerful and meaningful to you, Navya. Episodes where you said there's something in this episode that I am going to take into myself and think about something in a new way, or you've had a new revelation about something. Let's start with Star Trek Enterprise, the episode Fusion,
Okay.
where we meet the Vulcans who are not quite Vulcan, who love them emotions. And there's a very problematic part of the episode that I had a problem with, but I'll be curious for your perspective on it. So tell me about Fusion.
So this episode, when I saw it, I was shocked because it was the first time we had seen Vulcans become emotional. I think not because they were forced to, but they unleashed it kind of upon themselves. And seeing what a Vulcan normally is like and a Vulcan who has unleashed their emotion was crazy and wild. I was not ready to see the explosion of emotion that we got to see. And that moment when T'Pol got attacked, up until I had seen that episode, assaults and everything, like, was not something I'd really thought about. Because I was still very young when I'd seen it. I was like kind of in high school, and I don't think it wasn't talked about as much as it is nowadays. Or maybe I'd say that because I'm older. And that like opened my eyes, and I was like, what would I do in that situation? That's crazy. Because like I know this is sci-fi, but this is also real life. So it really, I started thinking more about my safety and what it is to be a woman, and what you would do in cases like that.
When I watched the episode, it's interesting because I gotta say, as a dramatic device, I don't necessarily object when we see very serious things in a show. What I object to is that they don't take those things as seriously as they ought to. And I feel like you can depict things like what we see in Fusion, but I feel like they didn't give it the weight that it should have gotten in the episode, which makes me like the episode less, to be honest with you. And it makes me think less of Archer as a captain. I don't know if you have any feelings on that one way or the other.
One of the issues that the Enterprise had overall in their shows, they packed a ton of stuff into their episodes. There was so much happening in that episode. By the time we got to the end, Archer, like, how would they have successfully addressed that issue? Like, that should have been a whole episode thing, right? The incident should have happened at the beginning, and Archer should have learned or tried to figure out what he had done, what he should do throughout the rest of the episode. But they kind of left that for the last like 3 minutes, and he made the decision that he unfortunately could in 3 minutes.
Let's talk about Discovery. Choose Your Pain. This, of course, is the one where we're introduced to the reincarnation, metaphorically speaking, of Harry Mudd.
Yes.
We have Ripper, the tardigrade. We have Mirror, but not quite Mirror because we didn't know it yet, Lorca, taken prisoner on the Klingon ship. So what in this episode touched you, Navya?
This episode came after, like, I think it was like the 5th episode in the season. And up until that episode, all people were complaining about online is how serious this show is. This show is the worst. I absolutely hate it. It's trash. And people hated the fact it was so dark. I love dark shows, so I was like absolutely in love with Discovery from the beginning. And getting to see this episode and seeing the comedy that the director or the writers of the show could inject into the episode was absolutely amazing. It gave me more hope that like people would eventually come to love it because we got to see different sides of the character. I don't know if it worked, but that's why I loved it, because we got to see humor for the first time in that show.
Humor in the episode is not what I would have imagined you would have said. It's an episode about torture and lots of horrible things happening, Navya.
A ton of stuff is happening, but they did inject humor, so it was better than, I think, because the other, like, the 4 episodes before was even darker.
Yeah, the episode before that is Context for Kings, which is, where we get the introduction of the Lorca character, whom we find out is the Mirror Lorca. And, it's sort of a lot of mysterious stuff going on, a lot of, like, tense, scary stuff. Like, we don't know what's going on the ship. We hear Black Alert for the first time.
Yes.
Lots of tension and, like, what is happening? It takes us right into The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry, which then takes us into Choose Your Pain. And I don't know. I mean, it was quite a ride. But
Yes.
I gotta say, humor was not the thing that I thought of. Wow. Let's move on. Let's talk about another Star Trek Enterprise episode. Let's talk about Cogenitor.
Yeah.
In Cogenitor, we have the trigendered species that has the cogenitor, which is required for reproduction. We
Hmm.
have Trip having a crisis,
Yeah.
and it sort of ends on a downer. So tell me what's going on with Cogenitor for you.
This episode has just so many layers, and I think it's a quintessential Star Trek episode. Then we have first contact going wrong. We have a society which Trip honestly is not a fan of, and I mean, he's judging them, right? We have reproductive rights, we have reproductive issues, we have the co-gender is kind of like a handmaiden, like, you could kind of make a comparison like that. And I love that this episode has so many layers, and we get to see a first contact gone wrong. I think in a lot of Star Trek episodes, we see first contact, it goes wrong, but then our people just disappear. But in this, we got to see what happened when first contact goes wrong.
I would love to have seen like the lower decks second contact
Mm-hmm.
with this
Yes.
group.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to see the Cerritos show up like after all
Yeah.
that had happened, be like, hey guys, we were here a while ago. I heard a lot of stuff went bad, but we
Yeah.
made a lot of improvements in the Federation.
Right.
I don't know what that conversation would have been like. Um, I really liked how they had the courage to actually kill off the character
Mm-hmm.
in this episode. I mean, I'm not saying I like it or approve of
Right.
it,
Yeah.
but as a choice, as far as the drama of the show, I really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
But I imagine that might be controversial for some people. I don't know if you want to react to that.
Actions have reactions, right? And if he opened up Charles, I think was the co-gender's name.
Charlie, yeah.
Charlie. He opened up Charlie's life to stuff that Charlie hadn't thought about, and Charlie realized, if I can't have that life, then is life really worth living? Like, you know?
It's an interesting comparison when you put that up
Yeah.
against like similitude, right?
Is it? I'm trying to think. I don't know episodes names very well, so I think you're right.
Yeah, so similitude is the episode where they grow a
Mhm.
clone of Trip for his organs
Uh-huh.
because real Trip got injured, and like
Yeah.
we start the episode with the clone, or we start with the funeral, and then we have the
Mhm.
clone, and we know that we're going to kill the clone to harvest his parts to fix Trip.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to compare this episode,
Yeah.
Cogenitor, to similitude, like put them back to back, right?
Right.
Because you have Trip dealing with this thing externally, and then you have
Yeah.
the other Trip dealing with it for himself,
Yeah.
right? What kind of life do I want to live? What kind of being do I want to be? What's actually the purpose of my life? Very
Yeah.
existential, very angsty sort of
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, if I was putting together, back in the 80s, this is before your time, I appreciate that. But back in them olden days, they used to send out the episodes 2 on a tape.
Uh-huh.
And for whatever reason, they weren't always consecutive episodes. And it always seemed like really random.
Yeah.
So I feel like those would be 2 episodes to put on the VHS tape
Yes.
together, right? Watch that as your
Yeah.
Enterprise doubleheader. Watch
Yeah.
Progenitor and then Similitude, and you'll get like, a whole Trip Tucker roller coaster ride all in
Yeah.
one little package.
I
So-
mean, I feel like some college professor should definitely do that for a lesson. Watch those 2 episodes.
Dr. Bashir, I presume. Deep Space Nine. This, of course, is the one where we have Dr.
Mhm.
Zimmerman, who's going to make a new version of the EMH out of Dr. Bashir. And we have Dr. Bashir's parents, and we discover his deep, dark secret that he's genetically altered. What's going on here with this one for you now?
For me, I'm a child of immigrants, and one of the big issues in that episode was, were Bashir's parents justified in making this decision for him, a decision that's going to affect the rest of his life? And they obviously think it's a good decision because because of these modifications, he's a doctor now. Now, would that have happened without those modifications? Who knows, but probably not. And so a lot of kids, and then so obviously his parents think that he needs to be thankful of that and be grateful that they did this for him. And that's the mindset a lot of immigrant parents have. They think, okay, we moved to this country for you. Now be grateful no matter what you have. This is good. You're not allowed to say anything else about it. And Bashir has some thoughts about his genetic modifications, and us as an immigrant child, I also have some thoughts. And so this episode really helped me reflect on my immigrant journey and think about like it from my parents' perspective and my perspective and help me realize that neither one of us is wrong or right. It's, this thing happened. Everyone made the best decision they could in that moment. And we're here.
Navya, my fans can't see you, but you obviously have a South Asian appearance.
Okay.
So do you feel some deeper affinity for the Bashir character because of that and how it shows up in this episode?
Uh-huh. No, it's funny because I think the actor is actually Middle Eastern, but his parents are played by Indian people. So I don't know what that was about. But no, it was very cool to see a brown guy of like Middle Eastern descent or like a brown skin similar to mine on screen. I did love that about Bashir's character.
All right, Navya, let's talk about another episode, and let's talk about a Voyager episode. We love Star Trek Voyager on Trek Profiles. So let's talk about Distant Origin, which is a season 3 episode where we learned what happened to the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
They went into space and took over another planet and had a whole society going on there and are now known as the Voth. So tell me what's going on with this one for you.
First of all, this episode is crazy. Just seeing dinosaurs. The Voyager writers, man, I don't know what they were up to during these writing sessions, but they were crazy. But no, I thought this was a cool episode because do you know the conspiracy theory of the lizard people?
No, tell me.
So there's a conspiracy theory that there are lizard people walking among us, and they're like shapeshifters and all that. I mean, it has some like racist undertones, so I don't. Yeah,
okay.
but it was kind of cool to see like that conspiracy theory of lizard people walking around kind of flipped on their head, and they're in space, and it might be true, but they're out here using science to prove that we're related. So I kind of loved seeing that on screen.
And they are very scientific. I mean, they are a very sort of rationalist kind of dinosaurs. They're not
Yeah.
Hulk smash types.
Yeah.
They were very intellectual, which I appreciated as well. Now, Navya, we've spoken for a little bit of time now. You post a lot on TikTok about Star Trek. You're devoting a lot of time and energy to Star Trek. Why does Star Trek matter to you?
Star Trek gives me hope for the future. I think when I was younger, it gave me hope that I would fit in somewhere because, everyone on Star Trek just loved each other. And I mean, they didn't always get along, but for the most part, they got along. They did respect each other at the end of the day. And they all worked together to find a solution to a problem or work for a common cause. And as I've gone older and I see the world kind of going downhill, it gives me hope that maybe one day we'll get to the place where Star Trek is. And so that's really why I love Star Trek so much.
Well, Navya, I've enjoyed our conversation. I hope you have as well.
I did. Thank you so much.
But the M5 is signaling me that it is now time for the Kobayashi Maru lightning round.
Okay, here we go.
The Kobayashi Maru is a challenging and difficult test, cunningly prepared by the M5 just for you. Should you not only survive the test, but pass it as well, the M5 will award you an honorary Star Trek title on behalf of our little program. Are you ready to face the M5 in the Kobayashi Maru test, Navya?
I'm ready.
M5, load the Kobayashi Maru simulation and prepare to record our guest responses.
Kobayashi Maru, ready.
Which green is the worst green? Thalaron radiation or Borg cube energy?
Thalion.
Cardassian neck ridges or Ferengi lobes?
Oh, Ferengi lobes.
You get to be an extra on Star Trek. Choose the task. Help Captain Pike with his hair, help Boimler with his pips, or bring Picard his tea.
Bring Picard his tea.
You're sick. What does the doctor prescribe? Cordrazine, inoprovaline, hydrocortisone, or hyronolin?
Hyronolin.
Pick your unusual and weird vacation spot. Ferenginar, Cardassia, or Shakari?
Oh God, Ferenginar.
It's positively glibbenning out there. Simulation complete. M5, please compute the results and tell us if our guest has passed the Kobayashi Maru.
Analyzing.
Navya, I am pleased to tell you that the M5 has calculated that you have passed the Kobayashi Maru simulation. Congratulations.
Yay.
And now, the M5, who has analyzed your answers, will award you an honorary Star Trek title on behalf of our show. M5, what title shall we award our guest?
Navya is awarded the title of Chief Food Technologist for Sherman's Planet.
So there you go.
I love it.
Do you remember Sherman's Planet?
No.
That's the planet from The Trouble with Tribbles.
Oh, no way.
That's where they were taking all the wheat. Remember that the
Oh.
whole show is about them trying to take the wheat to that planet, and the Tribbles eat all the wheat.
Oh, yeah.
Sherman's planet is where they were going.
Oh.
Navya, please tell people how they can get in touch with you, where they can follow you, where they can see your TikToks, where they can follow you on Instagram, whatever you want to share.
I'm on Instagram and TikTok, and my handle is thatgirlavon. Avon spelled Ayvan.
Navya, thank you so much for being part of Trek Profiles.
Thank you so much for having me.
Here ends this installment of the Trek Profiles podcast. And before we offer a Trek quote to close this episode, I'd like to remind you, yes, you, that you can send us your thoughts and reminiscences, your complaints and flames, or audio of yourself singing Klingon opera to feedback@trekprofiles.com or in any of our social medias. Anything you send us may be used in the show, or it may be fed to Moopsie as a snack. This time, I leave you with a quote from noted Star Trek hero Peanut Hamper, who said in the episode A Mathematically Perfect Redemption, quote, "How was I supposed to know these old ships still worked? I mean, they were built by organics, people who make things out of straw." Close quote. Thanks for listening, and live long and prosper.
This handcrafted podcast is brought to you by Stars and Sky Media Lab. It's cosmic.
I would like to check out Ferenginar. I don't think I'd eat anything while I was there because the slugs, Sluggo Cola, none of that appeals to me.
No.
But I do like cold and rainy weather.
Yeah. And apparently the TV broadcasts are amazing there.
Yeah, they do have some pretty good TV. They do got some, much better TV than Cardassia.
Yes.
And I don't think they have any TV at all at Shakari, so
No.
to hell with those people. Boom diggity, we're done. Was that fun for you?
Yeah, that was so much fun. It's kind of one of the reasons, I'm kind of glad Star Trek Discovery is over just for that reason, because I got so tired of people talking so much.
Oh my God, yes. And it's like, if you don't like the thing,
Yeah.
it's okay to be like, I don't like this thing. Did you know that there's one of the Discovery novels that ends with Prime Lorca?
Oh, no way.
There's an epilogue, and I forget which one it is. I'm sure you could look it up on Google or Memory Alpha.
Yeah.
But there's one of the Discovery novels where it ends with Prime Lorca in the Mirror Universe in a jail cell.
Wow.
I got to get the hell out of here, and I got to get back to my universe, and blah, 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 And one of my all-time favorite little gags in all Star Trek just happened in Lower Decks, since you saw it, right? Which is they're like, "You're not the Prime Universe, we're the Prime Universe." I was like, yes! I was like, I love that so much.
That whole episode was just so brilliant. I love the idea of them changing the differences between the characters were just a little bit. It's not this massive change. There's just little differences between the characters.
But those little differences make a big difference, right?
I love that. I love that.
Those little differences matter. And I even love how they did, and someone pointed this out online, but even the uniform shirts were just a slightly different shade of color.
Yes.
I just loved everything about that. I really did. That whole episode I just thought was glorious. And, Captain Freeman finding out she's on Starbase 80.
Yes.
I mean, I was like, of course she is.
I wonder if they're going to continue that throughout the season, or if they're going to drop it. Because at the end of the episode, she was still so stressed about that. Yeah, something disastrous is going to happen with the pad that he stole from that out of the universe. And then we'll probably see him discover himself.
Oh my God, could it be like that episode, A Piece of the Action, where they left behind Chicago mob book, remember, on that planet, and the whole planet becomes mobsters, right? And then they leave the phaser, and they're like, oh, what's going to happen if we ever come back here? We never find out. But maybe it's that, right?
Yeah.
And now they have the pad from the other universe.
Yeah.
And they find out some stuff. I don't know. I mean, we're just vamping here. Who knows?
Yeah.
But that to me would be glorious.
Yeah. It would. The animated shows are more for the Trekkies than the live action. I think the live actions can get a little bit, I don't know, depending on the season, they're getting really out there. But the Prodigy and Lower Decks, I think they're really true to Star Trek and its message.
What are you hoping for Strange New Worlds new season?
Oh my God. I don't know. I don't know what I'm hoping. That's one of those shows I like it, but it feels like fluff to me. I need that show to get deeper. It just feels very surface level. The first two seasons, like, it's fun. It's a great time. I'm enjoying it, but they need to get deeper. And I don't know how they're going to do that.
Well, they got pretty dark with a lot of that Gorn stuff.
They did.
I mean, they basically did Aliens.
Yes. But that was dark in more like a physical way. Like, I mean, like, they need to get darker emotionally or like really dive deep into a character.
But, I was very heartened about the Cybok reveal.
Yeah.
So let's see what that is.
I'm so excited for that. Hopefully hopefully they don't mess him up. I don't know. I'm nervous.
So you don't know this because you weren't there. It's not a criticism. But you might be interested to know Lawrence Luckenbill, the actor who played Cybok in Star Trek V, was at the Star Trek convention in August. That dude was a 100% full-throated defender of that film. He's like, it's an amazing film. It's amazing Star Trek. And if you don't like it, you don't like Star Trek. I mean, he was just like, this is it. I'm laying down these truth bombs, and y'all best get on board. And I was like, you know what? I don't really agree with a lot of that. But I appreciate the guy coming out and just being a full-throated defender of the movie. I loved it.
It just doesn't feel like Trek. No part of that movie feels like Trek. And I just did a rewatch because, the fifth Lower Deck season was referencing the movie poster. And I was just like, it still does not feel like Star Trek. Sometimes you'll rewatch something years later and then you'll have a fondness for it. I just couldn't.